Alexander Franklin James, or better known as Frank, was born January 10, 1843, in Kearney, Missouri. His father was a Baptist minister from Kentucky, and when Frank was just a young boy, his dad fell ill and tragically died in 1851 in a California gold mining camp while on a gospel mission. His mother later remarried 2 more times. Frank was the oldest of 3 children. As a child, growing up on the James farm, Frank showed interest in his late father's sizable library, giving his attention to the works of William Shakespeare. Census records show that James attended school regularly, and he reportedly wanted to become a teacher. The American Civil War began in 1861, when James was 18 years old. The James family was from the heavily Confederate western portion of the state. On September 13, 1861, the Missouri State Guard, including Private Frank James, besieged Lexington, Missouri. James fell ill and was left behind when the Confederate forces retreated. He surrendered to the Union troops, was paroled, and was allowed to return home. On his arrival, however, he was arrested by the local pro-Union militia and was forced to sign an oath of allegiance to the Union. By early 1863, Frank, despite his parole and oath of allegiance, decided to join the guerrilla band of Fernando Scott. He soon switched to the more active command led by William Quantrill. Frank took part with Quantrill's company in the August 21, 1863 Lawrence Massacre, where approximately 200 mostly unarmed civilians were killed. After the war, most of the former bushwhackers returned to peaceful lives. Many left Missouri for friendlier places. Most of their former leaders, including Quantrill and Bloody Bill, had been killed during the war. But a small core of Anderson's bushwhackers, led by the ruthless Archie Clement, remained together. This group sometimes included the James brothers, and even Cole Younger. Missouri authorities believed that Clement, possibly with help from the James brothers, planned and led the robbery of the Clay County Savings Bank on February 13, 1866. Clement led several more insignificant bank robberies that year and was killed by state militia while occupying the town of Lexington, Missouri. During his years as a bandit, James was involved in at least 4 robberies between 1866 and 1876 that resulted in the deaths of bank employees or citizens. On June 13, 1866, in Jackson County, Missouri, the gang freed 2 jailed members of Quantrill's gang, killing the jailer in the process. Historians believe that the James brothers were involved in this crime. Two years later, in 1868, Frank and Jesse allegedly joined Cole Younger in robbing a bank in Russellville, Kentucky. The James brothers gained a higher level of notoriety and a bounty offer when Jesse, and most likely Frank, robbed the Daviess County Savings Association in Gallatin, Missouri. The robbery netted little money, and Jesse is believed to have shot and killed the cashier, Captain John Sheets, mistakenly believing him to be Samuel Cox, the man who had killed Bloody Bill Anderson. James claimed he was taking revenge, and the daring escape he and Frank made through the middle of a posse attracted newspaper coverage for the first time. At this point, around 1869, the James brothers joined Cole Younger and his brothers, along with other former Confederates, to form what came to be known as the James Younger Gang. The gang carried out a string of robberies from Iowa to Texas, and from Kansas to West Virginia. They robbed banks, stagecoaches, and even a fair in Kansas City. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the new episode. One notable heist was on July 21st, 1873, when they turned to train robbery, derailing a Rock Island Line train west of Adair, Iowa, and stealing approximately $3,000, equivalent to about $75,000. It was around this time that the Pinkerton Agency was brought in to infiltrate and capture the gang. After several undercover agents were outed and killed, Alan Pinkerton, the agency's founder, took on the case as a personal vendetta. He began to work with former Unionists who lived near the James family farm. On the night of January 25, 1875, he staged a raid on the homestead. Detectives threw an incendiary device into the house, killing James' younger half-brother Archie and blowing off one of Zerelda Samuel's arms. Afterward, Pinkerton denied that the raid's intent was arson, but biographer Ted Yeatman found a letter by Pinkerton in the Library of Congress in which Pinkerton declared his intention to burn the house down. The gang attempted their most famous heist on September 7, 1876, intending to rob the bank in Northfield, Minnesota at about 2 p.m. To carry out the robbery, the gang divided into two groups. 3 men entered the bank, 2 guarded the door outside, and 3 remained near a bridge across an adjacent square. The robbers inside the bank were thwarted when acting cashier Joseph Lee Haywood refused to open the safe, falsely claiming that it was secured by a time lock, even as they held a Bowie knife to his throat and cracked his skull with a pistol butt. Assistant cashier Alonzo Bunker was wounded in the shoulder as he fled through the back door of the bank. Meanwhile, the citizens of Northfield grew suspicious of the men guarding the door and raised the alarm. The 5 bandits outside fired into the air to clear the streets, driving the townspeople to take cover and fire back from protected positions. They shot 2 bandits dead and wounded the rest in the barrage. Inside, the outlaws turned to flee, and as they left, one shot the unarmed cashier Haywood in the head. Historians have speculated about the identity of the shooter, but have not reached a consensus. The gang barely escaped Northfield, leaving 2 dead companions behind. A substantial manhunt ensued. The James brothers eventually split from the others and escaped to Missouri. The militia soon discovered the Youngers and one other bandit, Charlie Pitts. Pitts died in a gunfight, and the Youngers were taken prisoner. Except for Frank and Jesse James, the James Younger gang was destroyed. Later that year, Jesse and Frank James surfaced in the Nashville, Tennessee area, where they went by the names of Thomas Howard and B.J. Woodson, respectively. Frank seemed to settle down, but Jesse remained restless. He recruited a new gang in 1879, embarking on a short-lived crime spree. And by 1881, with local Tennessee authorities growing suspicious, the brothers returned to Missouri, where they felt safer. Frank, however, decided to move to safer territory and headed east to settle in Virginia. They intended to give up crime, and the James gang had been reduced to just the 2 of them. Most accounts say that James surrendered with the understanding that he would not be extradited to Northfield, Minnesota. He was tried for only 2 of the robbery murders. He ended up being acquitted in both Missouri and Alabama. Missouri accepted legal jurisdiction over him for other charges, but they never came to trial. He was never extradited to Minnesota for his connection with the Northfield raid. In his final years, James returned to the James farm, giving tours for the sum of 25 cents. He died there at age 72 on February 18, 1915. He left behind his wife, Annie Ralston James, and 1 son. He's interred in the Hill Park Cemetery in the western part of Independence, Missouri.